What is up, everyone? Welcome to today's News Tonight, episode 9. We're almost to 10. Almost 2 weeks we've been doing this. We're pros now. I'm your host for this episode, Steve Bowling. I'm joined by my fellow co-founders, Ash Paulson and Derek Bittner. And of course, tonight, as always, we have a very special guest, someone I'm honored to call a close friend and who constantly destroys me at fighting games, none other than Imran Khan. How you doing tonight, man?
That is not the close friend part. That's not a lie. The fighting game part is a huge lie. Because remember the one time you and I played Mortal Kombat together? It was that like two players versus an AI thing where the AI cheats like crazy, and you were doing 99% of the work, and I was like, it was like the equivalent of like when you and your dad go to play baseball, and like you're like and your dad's like throwing like 60-mile-an-hour pitches. I'm like, I threw a. I was going to say Hadouken. That's not Mortal Kombat. I threw like a Sub-Zero thing or whatever, and that did some good. And like I think eventually, after like 5 tries, we eventually won. But no, you held most of that down. And I was like, I know how buttons work. I know the foundation of pressing a button on a controller and a thing happens in a video game, and that's as far as like I could get in that fighting game thing.
See, I was thinking back to Koei Tecmo when we were playing Dead or Alive, and you were just wrecking me. Like every single round, and they were like, "Hey guys, we're gonna close," and we were both like, "Hey, can we have just a few more minutes? We have a score to settle." And they're like, "All right, fine, we'll pack up everything around you guys." And we kept playing. I think I took maybe one round, and that was it.
Dead or Alive, I'm pretty good at, so that one I could see.
What I'm getting from this, Imran, is that you and I have to play Smash together then, because if you're good at fighting games, I assume you're good at Smash as well. And
how dare you call Smash Brothers a fighting game? No, I'm kidding.
I know.
Wow, so we're already getting deep into...
I know.
I will do this with the caveat of no one is good at Smash Online, but I am okay at Smash. I was able to beat... Steve and I are actually fairly equal at Smash Online, if I recall correctly. I think we got more or less... Like, your Cloud was generally better than mine, but I think my Richter was better than, like...
Yes.
Your Cloud?
My Mega Man will take on your Richter and your Cloud at once. Let's go. I'm ready.
Let's do it. I like Richter. Poor guy can't recover to save his life, literally.
No.
Yeah, right. I feel bad because I remember Imran and I were talking about playing Smash, and I was like, oh, be forewarned, I'm not very good. Because I always say that. And I used Little Mac, and I just bodied him like the first round. And he was like, what the fuck, man? You said you weren't good at all. And I was like, I'm not. And he's like, but eventually he figured out my Little Mac and started just countering me like crazy. But yeah, your Richter came out on top of that session.
Well,
like,
see, you played the long game.
I eventually couldn't work around him.
You played the long game because, like, I saw you back at the kind of funny intramural game tournament, whatever the hell it's called. Like, you were in the finals playing Smash Brothers.
I was.
And that time, I remember you looking back at me because you're like, I could play Ryu and I think I'd win, but I kind of want to play Cloud. I'm like, no, play Ryu. What are you talking about? And you're like, no. What was it the opposite? You played Ryu and you could have played Cloud, and you ended up losing that because you didn't play your main there.
I didn't play my main. He was Alex O'Neil, or who was it that won? Who won?
I probably should know, but I do not.
I choked, but he was Pichu, and I couldn't get any moves to hit him with Ryu. I was like, Ryu and your damn to reach your nubby limbs. I could have been hitting Pichu with a damn Buster Sword. But yeah, my hubris cost me the championship.
Steve, your problem, I can tell you your problem right now. I didn't even see the match. Your problem is that you were using the wrong Buster. Not the Buster Sword, man. Use the Mega Buster. Then you would have won.
Yeah, no.
Come on.
No. Also, obligatory Mega Man reference of the episode.
Yep.
I'm awful at Mega Man. I can't make it work. It just feels too
He's
unnatural.
a very technical
I was going to wear a Mega Man shirt, and I decided not to.
Nice.
What?
Okay, so literally, right before this, I went to go throw some clothes in the laundry. The Mega Man shirt was in there. When I came to, change clothes for this thing, it's like, oh, crap. I just put it in that big laundry pile, so could not this time.
Nice.
Oh, well.
Oh, man. Well, that means we have to have you back on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, woe am I about that. But real quick, before we jump into the news, I just want to remind you that if you like what we do here at today's News Tonight, you can support us on patreon.com at patreon.com/gvgaming to watch us live every weeknight at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern for just $5. You also get an MP3 for that. There's a bunch of other stuff on the Patreon. I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but we've got some news topics for today, and we've got one of the best news people in the business with us for that. So let's go right into it.
To be fair, I'm dating one of the best news people in the business. Me,
That's
myself,
true.
retired from that. But
Rebecca Valentine, Journalist of the Year from the
Yes.
Gamer Awards. That is
Wow.
awesome.
Wow.
Rebecca,
Very cool.
also a close friend. And
Yeah.
Sweet.
I'm in love with the two of you dating. Like, it's one of my favorite, most wholesome things in the universe. I remember when you guys first started dating, and she told me, I was like, yes. Like, this is the best.
I love it.
So I'm
Your
super thrilled
ultimate
for
shit
both of
come
you.
to life.
Exactly. Like, I had no
she is
idea
the
I was
news writer in the
shipping.
relationship these days. I'm more like the host, I guess.
That's true. That's true. Imran has really been doing what we're doing now longer than us. So
Teach us, O master.
first, exactly. Our first news topic. IO Interactive has released a teaser trailer for Project 007. I think we were all expecting a Hitman game, and we kind of got one. Like, we're definitely going to kill people in a secretive fashion, but this is not at all what I was expecting. I'm going to throw it to you first, Imran, because I'll be honest, I haven't had a chance to watch the teaser yet. Have you checked this out? What do you think of it?
I haven't watched the teaser. I saw their announcement. I was like, hey, we're working on a James Bond game. I was like, oh, that's perfect. That's literally perfect. One, we don't get enough spy video games, and Hitman is probably the closest to a spy video game we've gotten in a long time. I think IO Interactive has clearly wanted to stretch their narrative muscles for a little while. Like, there's some of that in Hitman, but that's not the draw. That's not what people really come to Hitman for. But there's, like, these really expensive and elaborate cutscenes and, like, even ambient dialogue and ambient story and all these little things in world building going on in these games that they want to explore. And I think now they have a license that they can actually, like, do that with. And what I was able to see this they're doing an origin story of James Bond, of a younger James Bond, first getting into the business, probably, killing some people as he is wont to do. But if you could take, I don't imagine they're going to one-to-one take the Hitman gameplay and just make a James Bond game out of it, but you could do that and it would still work perfectly fine.
It's also going to be fun because this is a perfect opportunity to just throw in all those 007 gadgets. That really feels like we're going to go through here because it's an origin story and it's also going to be a wholly original story according to the tweet. The teaser trailer really doesn't show much. It's like a gun chamber loading and doing that. There's
It's just
no
the
gameplay
usual,
whatsoever.
Gun chamber view, down. I think it's his PP7 silenced PP7,
Something like that.
Thing that's always associated with James Bond. Yeah, I'm very intrigued by the idea of a James Bond origin story, the very first one, as we've been saying. The teaser doesn't tell us much, but I'm super into this, and I don't know if they're going to have their own version of the character or if it's going to be based on anyone's likeness. My guess is the former, but I'll just come out and say it. If it is going to be based on an existing Bond, I hope it's the Daniel Craig version because he's the best Bond. Don't at me, fight me, whatever the kids say these days. Daniel Craig's the best Bond. There, I said it.
I'm just excited for what some might call a tactical espionage action game starring James Bond. I mean, am I the only one that when Metal Gear Solid was a thing, I was like, man, this would be a good Bond game. Like you could.
You could put Snake in the tux.
Yeah, that's true.
There is that whole aspect. So
I hope at least there's like a tracking briefcase that Bond can throw, just to like tie it back to Hitman in some way. Like be like just make it canonically a gadget.
Just no laptop guns, please. No, or was that Perfect Dark?
That was perfect.
That was Perfect Dark.
That was Perfect Dark. Okay.
I will say there's so much potential here, and I'm genuinely excited for it. There have been some good Bond games. What was it? Was it Everything or Nothing? That was pretty good. Third person Bond, but that was also
like
much
the
more of an
car stuff.
action game.
Yeah, like they're all action games. I think that's one of the reasons I'm excited about this one is that Hitman. You could theoretically play it like an action game. Like you could take a gun out and just shoot everybody. You die real fast, but that isn't an option. But like this is not a game that has to follow the same rules as a first-person shooter from EA. They can make a Bond game where you don't kill 700 people on your way to the second level. You can just like kill that one person and get out, or like not even kill someone, go sabotage something, or I imagine there's no way they can get around it, seduce someone or something like that, and like that is the level goal. And I think that plays perfectly to IO Interactive's strengths. And this, like I said, this is a match made in heaven.
Yeah, 100%. I'm really excited for this. I haven't played a ton of Hitman, but it's been one of those series that's always kind of been on the periphery for me, and I've always wanted to. But, as we often say in this business, there's always something else to play. So
Yeah,
I find that I desperately want to cover this game just so I have a good reason to play it. Anyway, sorry, Derek, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I did play a little bit of Hitman, and I'd watched a streaming series of somebody playing it, and just basically they pass the controller, like, here's the mission, your turn, see if you can do it, fail, next person try. It's really entertaining to see everybody try to like have these different methods, and it really sold me on the game, just how many different ways you can do all this stuff. And it encourages that within the Hitman games where, okay, you did it this way, cool, you can play again and try a completely different method and still get the kill. And it's fascinating. It made me pick up the game. Didn't get to play it too much, but what I did play was like, yeah, this feels good. This is like, I tried some of the earlier Hitman games and they never clicked with me, but these new ones that they've been putting out really do a great job. And as everybody's been saying, perfect Bond game.
So this is interesting in that I was just looking this up. Polygon says this is a IO Interactive's third self-published title, like Hitman 3.
Oh, wow.
And yeah. So they inked a deal a year or so ago, maybe more than a year, when Hitman 2 came out, that inked a deal with WB for a second game. I think they called it a new IP. I had assumed it was this, but I guess it's not. So do they still have that WB game, or is that just gone now that WB is seemingly like not as interested in playing or making video games anymore?
That's a good question.
That's the question. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Maybe, but I feel like this game is almost destined to be a bestseller. Like, I can't imagine IO screwing it up.
Yeah.
So maybe they saw the beginnings of it and was like, no, do this, and just sort of sold it,
Yeah, I'm really curious what do they have another project behind this, or like is Hitman 3 and this all they're working on, or is there just more IO Interactive news to come?
Right.
I hope there's more to come. I've been consistently impressed by what I've seen from them, so more is good as far as I'm concerned.
I just had a fun thought, because each Bond is kind of different. Like, Connery's the smooth one. I think Roger Moore loves the gadgets. Daniel Craig is definitely the more hand-to-hand fighter one. I think maybe it's because of GoldenEye. Pierce Brosnan was always the more gun one. Maybe a few big gadgets as well. I think it'd be kind of cool if you like trended towards a different kind of Bond. Like, the different Bonds mark your trajectory as what kind of Bond are you. I don't know.
You know what?
I could see like a skill tree that just is like Craig. That would be cool.
Build your Bond.
Like a Bond archetype. But
right.
You know what I really, since we're putting our hopes for this game out there, I was crushed when rumors were circulating about Idris Elba being Bond, and then that just never happened.
Yeah.
Give me Black Bond in this game.
Yes.
I would
now
be
he's
so down.
Now he's probably
we
too
may
old
already
for the role.
have that. And we actually may already have that when No Time to Die comes out, because I think they cast at least as far as we know of what the story seems to be, I think they cast a black woman in the role of the new Bond that Daniel Craig's Bond interacts with in the movie. Yeah. Which, if so, that's even better. Give me a black female Bond. That'd be even cooler. Yeah. So we'll see. Although I do, at the rate this COVID stuff is going, No Time to Die may come out after this game. Who knows? But I'm still crossing my fingers it's soon. I'm waiting for that movie.
One bit of a cruel, I guess not irony, but, an interesting little note is that years ago Square Enix got rid of IO Interactive and they sold them off to themselves, essentially, because they were trying to make room for resources and money for what we now know as the Avengers project. And the news today was Avengers, Kate Bishop, and IO Interactive as their new Bond game. And the Bond game more or less took over the entire news, and not a whole lot of people paid attention to the new Avengers update. So they kind of came out ahead in that standoff, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame with Avengers, because it had potential, but it's definitely squandered at this point. Like, there's no road to redemption for Avengers at all.
I think the potential died when they couldn't get the next-gen version out day one, and that was their one chance, and now no one's... People will come back, but not enough people for it to matter.
And I saw somebody else mention that it was, Kate Bishop is the DLC character, and because of COVID, there's no show, Disney Plus show to back it up for the Hawkeye show that would have
that's true.
really introduced Kate Bishop to people.
Right.
That was sort of the idea. So timing has just not worked in their favor.
Yeah, I have a friend who's really excited about the Kate Bishop drop, but he's also a massive comics guy, both Marvel and DC, and he's already devoured Miles Morales. So he's just looking for anything else to consume. And even he will admit that the Avengers game didn't live up to anywhere close to its potential. But he said he enjoyed at least the story and the fan service. So he's, I guess, looking forward to it in that kind of limited sense, which I can totally appreciate. Really quick, thank you, Dan and Twistle, for telling me your name. Lashana Lynch is the actress who was playing the new 007 in No Time to Die.
Oh, okay.
So thank you for clearing that up. I couldn't remember her name.
Cool.
Yeah, so let's move on to what I suspect will be the longest segment of this episode. Capcom. Plans for the next 4 years of Capcom games were released as part of a ransomware attack. And Imran, I specifically wanted to include this on tonight's episode because I saw you tweet about it. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I think we all have some feelings about this, but I want to throw it to you first to kind of break down where you're at with this leak.
I've been conflicted, and I've been trying to figure out like what would I do were I in charge of news to like report on this or not, because this is a release of data from a ransomware attack, and Capcom did not pay the money for the I don't know how much we were asked to pay, but they sent that email a couple of days ago saying, hey, we were part of an attack, some data got out. A lot of data got out, including like you said, the next 4 years of details, Resident Evil launch plans. They have data on employee like personal data, addresses, payment, like bank. No financial information yet, but we don't know if they actually do have that. It is an ethically murky thing to report on, and I don't begrudge anyone who is reporting on it. But I do think that like if I had to come down on it, I probably would just go, hey, this happened, but it's not. These are things that are not unexpected. And I don't know where you guys fall on like saying what those things actually are or not.
I mean, when I was gathering up news, I've seen what some of them are. I don't know the full breadth of them because there's a lot, but I've seen some of them. And as I was looking at this, it's like, I can't reveal this. It just feels too big because there are some massive, massive plans revealed in these. And to just put it out there, it just seems to be playing into the ransomware people's, like they wanted to punish Capcom and they're doing that. And it just feels wrong to report on. It's like, this is what Capcom has in the line. And I'm excited by it. I think there's a lot of potential there, but it sucks that it was revealed because I know that has to be crushing to see these things shown and not having it. And a lot of them are likely extremely early in, almost guaranteed. But
right,
none of it's like
I don't want to mention them at all personally.
None of it's shocking.
Oh well,
like they're all games that are like, Capcom's making sequels to the games that sell really well, like crazy. Yeah. So I'm still in that same boat of like, if people report on it, then Capcom it does what the ransomware people wanted, which is it creates an incentive for the next person to pay. Mm-hmm. So I understand, like me personally, I just wouldn't report on it then. But like there have been things so one of the things that is now just out and like was not part of today's leak, was part of a couple of days ago, but they have a PC SKU for Monster Hunter Rise.
Right.
And that is a thing that, as an example, is going to hurt the Switch version, undoubtedly, because now that game is going to come out for PC eventually. You could have assumed it would have, it was not illogical that game was going to come out for PC eventually, but now if you don't have to buy it for the Switch, if you don't want to, you could get a undoubtedly better performing and better graphically version. So that is a thing that, is going to hurt their next plans. I'm sure Nintendo is pissed about that sort of thing. There's the details they've released now have been details from 2018. There are rumors of let's say a Switch revision, those rumors that are have come from Washington Post, Bloomberg, things like that. If those are in that data, as they start releasing more, that is going to be a massive issue. That's going to be a thing that does not just affect Capcom. That affects Nintendo. That affects a bunch of partners. So yeah, this whole thing is I am torn because it is all incredibly newsworthy, but there's also things that just feel dirty to talk about, and I also have to like kind of reckon with my hypocrisy a little bit because I've devoured that Nintendo hack a couple of months ago. Like that was I just love reading everything about that, and I don't know what the major difference between those two things is. One just feels more evil than like the other one.
Maybe it's because the Nintendo stuff was from years ago.
Right.
This is
from like
recent and
several
the future.
console generations ago.
It's maybe not something Nintendo wanted out there with their Giga Leak, but it doesn't actively hurt them from what I can tell. Other than no, Luigi's throwing up the middle finger and Yoshi looked. This is what Yoshi looked like and as Jared Ediger said, both did have doxing, which does make it, not great. Right. But because of all of it, this just feels so much more malicious than the Nintendo one did.
I think anytime you're dealing with illegally acquired data, like stolen data, right? I think there's, first off, a huge difference between a person on the inside leaking information to the press, right? Like that's somebody who has access to this, like normally, in most cases, but this is somebody actually like attacking the company, and stealing the data, and then in the case of Capcom, trying to extract money from them to keep them from disseminating the information. It feels especially grimy, like the way this data came out.
These people deserve jail time, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure.
And they're going to get
context,
it.
The whole context surrounding this is completely different. I completely agree with you guys.
Let's not forget the Canadian or Australian hacker who like got next gen info way back in the PS3, Xbox 360 days, or was it PS4 and Xbox One days, who I think is in jail now. But Kotaku like reported on those leaks, Orbis and Durango. So that was PS4 and Xbox One. And that guy is in prison. So I don't know that there's I'm confident that huge billion-dollar corporations will definitely find and get the hacker in trouble that did all this. I mean, they have the money to track these people down. So I'm not concerned about that. I'm really not worried about ramifications coming to the person that did this, because a billion-dollar corporation will find a way. But
for the doxing aspect alone, I hope whoever is responsible, they need to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Right.
To say nothing of all the sensitive information here, in terms of their business, just doxing employees alone. To me, I like what punish these people.
I like what Imran was talking about earlier about his hypocrisy, because I feel the same way. On one hand, this is definitely news. Like, it's big news too. Like, a bunch of games we didn't know about have inadvertently hit the internet. Plans to, the exclusives are not actually exclusive. Those are big newsworthy things. People, that are in normal circumstances are absolutely worth reporting on. So it's really hard when it's like, oh man, you got all this info that people definitely want to know, but it came about in this really shitty way. And you have to decide, like, does the newsworthiness of the actual information outweigh the shittiness of how it was obtained? And I think for a lot of this stuff, the answer is no. But at the same time, like, the event itself, outside of the information contained therein, is absolutely worth talking about. We're talking about it now because it's worth talking about. But it does present a major ethical question as somebody in media who has to present this information in a responsible way.
I suspect this is actually going to happen more often too, because the reason this happened is because Capcom does not and cannot have the same level of security around its network when everyone is spread from working from home. Like, this is a direct result of COVID. And a lot of other people are in the same boat. A lot of other companies are in the same boat. Gaming companies, non-gaming companies. We're going to get more hacks like these that do present things and it also may be a part of the fact that we're also closely built into the gaming industry. If this happened with, say, Marvel, and they started saying oh yeah, well, here's the next 10 years of Marvel movies, you can bet your ass I'm gonna read all that stuff and be oh cool, there's the Kamala Khan movie, I'm excited about that. But when this happens in our own industry, I feel these people are victims here, and it's weird to talk about a company as a victim, but a company is made up of people. And IGN had a story today that a lot of people who don't even work at Capcom anymore had their details leaked, and they are now at risk of having their identity stolen because there's actual personal details, social security numbers, things that are on payroll information that does put them at risk. And Capcom, as of right now, is not doing a great job of securing them, but also, what can you really do at this point?
I mean, the damage is done, right? I mean, the attack has been carried out. They're already trying to extort the money from them. The damage has been done. I guess at this point, it's about controlling and mitigating it. But yeah, I mean, as you were saying, Imran, there's so much sensitive personal information flowing around out there that alone makes me not want to report on the specifics of it because, as you were saying, we don't want to encourage the next ransomware attacker, to do the same thing because they saw that it worked in this case. On the other hand, though, as you guys have been saying, it is difficult not to talk about some of this stuff because I'm looking at the extended list of stuff today, right now, that came out. And, of course, I'm not going to talk about it. You guys, anybody who wants to go find it can find it. But there's some really provocative stuff to talk about here, including something in particular I know you guys know I want to talk about, but I won't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy,
but,
wait, I just put a huge... Gee, I wonder what that could be.
It's definitely Capcom rebooting Kingdom Hearts. That's what it is.
Obviously.
So, one of the things that I kind of hope happens, and maybe not as a direct result of this, but just in general, is maybe the video game industry should stop being as secretive as it is. And this sucks, undoubtedly. But also, Capcom announced Resident Evil 2 at the project pitch. They literally had a thing the "We Did It" T-shirt and all that stuff, and then they didn't show the game for another 3 years. And it didn't take away from that game's reveal or that game's sales or that game's quality that it was revealed at its pitch. It people were still happy to see it at that I think PlayStation E3 conference. If they did just say, "Hey, yeah, we're working on this game. We know you guys are really excited about the sequel. We'll show you it when we have something to show," but it should. Video games are the most secretive industry that I've ever been a spectator of. Maybe it doesn't need to be that way. Maybe Nintendo doesn't need to hold games until 3 months before release and then reveal them. Maybe they can make Switch owners feel better saying here's what 2021 looks like. Who knows? That is a big sea change that the entire industry is probably not ready for. But it would prevent things like this from being damaging. Honestly.
It would, but there's so many moving parts. There's so many stories out there of this. They do announce a game and this is coming, and then stuff happens behind the scenes, and all of a sudden it's canceled. So do you want to deal with the bad press of this game that everybody's really excited for is suddenly canceled, i.e. Legends 3,
But like you said, Kate Bishop's not out. The TV show's not out. No one's raising pitchforks. It'll come out or it won't. Who really knows? But if it doesn't, people aren't going to be that mad. They'll just be okay. If we normalize the fact that sometimes these things happen, then I think people will be it would be a big cultural change for the game industry, which is why I don't think it's going to happen because of this or overnight.
Good luck changing the game industry. That's
but it would be cool if video games could just be less secretive overall.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, we were talking about about that in the Nintendo Gig Leak a few episodes ago, Imran, and we were talking about how if they wanted to, Nintendo could monetize the shit out of all the stuff that leaked in the Giga Leak and put it in an art book. They could sell that for really whatever they wanted, and all the enthusiasts would happily lap it up. But that's not the culture of the game industry. It's all about secrecy and to a point, I understand that, but I do agree with you, Imran. I think we need to see a gradual shift away from that to help kind of stem the tide against these kinds of things happening.
There are two comments in our chat right now that I think are worth discussing. First one should be a little quicker, and this is more towards Imran from Rob Arman X, who says, we have stuff like Square where the whole meme is that they announce things too far in advance. That's fair.
Sure, but also we only think that's weird because it's not what everyone else does.
Okay. Good point.
FF7, if they were more clear about what happened at FF7, if they said, hey, yeah, CyberConnect wasn't making the game we wanted, so we brought it back in, we're rebooting it. We know that's taking longer, but I promise the game will be fine. And guess what? The game came out, the game was great. So, if they had just said that, then I think people will be like, okay, yeah, that's actually kind of understandable. Because if they come out and say like the next James Bond wasn't coming together, but we're rebooting it and we're fixing parts of this, people wouldn't freak out. They'd be like, okay, that's how movies work.
Yeah.
And to
You're
be
right,
fair,
Imran. I mean, oh, go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say, conversely, Nintendo has done exactly this with 2 games
That's what I was about to say.
We've got
Yeah,
Bayonetta 3 and Metroid Prime 4, and people aren't like, you don't go into Nintendo's Twitter mentions and see people
3
screaming
games. Breath
about
of the Wild
it.
2, we haven't heard anything of since its
Fair.
reveal.
But we've at least seen footage of that game, maybe. But, for Bayonetta and Metroid Prime, all we've got are logos. And people, were genuinely like pretty hype about Retro taking Prime 4 back. So, that was a case where Nintendo was like, yeah, we had this outsourced. We didn't like how it was coming together. We rebooted it with with Retro back in charge, and people reacted by and large positively to that. So I do think Imran's got a valid point here. Like if the game industry was more open about the development of the products they're seeking to sell us, it probably wouldn't be as big of a deal as people think it is.
Tim Lear has a counterpoint to that almost, where they say, I think it's also about competition. Companies don't want to show off their cards, especially with next-gen consoles being sold purely on so many promises. And it is that weird House of Cards thing where, like, we start normalizing other things, and it's like, well, all of a sudden it's open season, like, Square's making this, we should do this as well, and do the whole thing. It's that whole DreamWorks versus Disney thing that happened early on. It's like, we know Disney's making A Bug's Life, so we're going to put out Ants to compete with them and do better and get it out earlier.
I mean, my counterpoint to that is I've been playing Sackboy on PS5. That game is Mario 3D World. And Mario 3D World comes out in a couple of months. No one cares. Like, everyone's just like, all right, cool. There's now 2 Mario 3D Worlds that we can play.
I never considered that, but it absolutely is. Like it's Mario 3D World.
I've not played it.
That game is a lawsuit on a disc, honestly. Like, it is literally close to Mario 3D World.
That's so funny.
Wow.
I didn't. I mean, of course, I've seen the trailers, but I haven't played the game yet. But that's funny that it's that similar.
Yeah, it's even got 4-player co-op. So
I mean, we did see that from the trailer,
Imran's
so
right.
I didn't think about that. Real quick from earlier on, a Fantasy Thinker fan wanted to know, do you guys think these details getting out is going to impact if some of these games are even going to come out now? Like, do you think they'll be like that and be like, it's been spoiled, we're going to cancel it? So some people do get like that.
I don't think that a company would out and out cancel a game just because information got out. I think people are going to view it that way if anything in that list changes. Like, because let's talk about it, it's 4 years. Like, a lot can happen in 4 years. People can just decide, hey, this isn't coming together. We're going to scrap it, for whatever the normal reasons would be. And people will say, oh, well, I saw it on this leak 3 years ago. So clearly that's the reason why it's no longer being worked on.
Yeah.
So I do think the blame will get assigned to the leak, but I think whatever games disappear or move from that list will disappear for whatever reasons they would have regardless. I don't think Capcom's going to let the leak influence their force them to change their plans. But I could be wrong. Who knows?
I think people should expect this not to be a set-in-stone roadmap. And I know a lot of people are going to see it as that, but, we don't know exactly when this data was from, right? So things could have already changed in terms of release timings and release windows and such. So I know there will be people out there who look at this as gospel and be like, okay, this is when A, B, C, D, E, and F are coming out. But that may have already changed. It could change going forward. So I think, while this leak gives us a top-down view of generally what to expect from Capcom in the next 3 or 4 years, which sucks for Capcom, and I hate this for them, I do think that there is still a lot of room for maneuverability and change in what Capcom is actually going to do with everything we're seeing in this league. So I think people should expect that to be fluid. Personally,
a good example of that is RE8 Village. Like, from what we know, based on leaks from I've forgotten what site, Rely on Horror's like Dust Golem, who was a prolific Capcom leaker over the last 2 years. RE8 originally started as a Resident Evil Revelations game it ended up testing super well, and then they're like, why don't we just make this a main series game? So like if 3 years ago we saw that game on a list, it would say Resident Evil Revelations, I don't know,
3.
Switch, whatever. And then now it's Resident Evil 8, not Switch, PS4 or PS5, Xbox Series X and all that. Like that changed massively. So like there could be things on that list that are going to bear no resemblance to what we actually do come out with. But we're not going to know that, so we might just think, oh, they must have canceled. I was going to name one of those games, but like they must have canceled that Resident Evil game on that list. But as far as we know, it could become Resident Evil 9 one day, or it could become Devil May Cry 6 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Because Resident Evil 4 is such a perfect example of how that can happen. How we got so many spin-offs from Resident Evil 4 because they couldn't figure out what they wanted to do with it. And then when they actually were going forward with Resident Evil 4, we could have ended up with Ghost Adventures instead of, the Spanish countryside. There's so many different ways it could have gone and changed so much over its development. So
you know what?
Yeah.
Speaking of Resident Evil, that's a perfect segue to our next news topic. We have the first images, not leaked, or at least not illegally obtained, from the Resident Evil movie reboot have been posted online. This comes from our ROE Network on Twitter.
Yes, I believe it stands
it's just
for...
a Residents of Evil Network.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. I'm not familiar with the account.
But no, I'm not either, but I just saw it.
Yeah, so it basically says, our first look at what appears to be the Spencer Mansion plus new photos of Star's helicopter from the upcoming Resident Evil movie reboot. I mean, looks spooky.
I appreciate the accuracy.
Set in a Resident Evil movie.
I mean, I said for a while I always wanted to see if Resident Evil actually covered the first game. What's weird about this one to me is that it seems like they're covering 1 and 2 in this movie, which seems like a lot to do all in one place. But
I mean, I guess it makes sense. Like, honestly, 1 is a little light for a movie. Like,
true.
Yeah.
You're just kind of you go into the mansion, and then like Wesker pulls like Loki-style tricks for 3 hours, and then the movie ends. Like,
good point.
I could see like bouncing between the two. I am so well worn on those two stories that I'm not sure I'm interested in watching like a movie about them. But like it would be cool if they do an accurate one, like get more people like to recognize. I wonder if you talk to Joe Schmo on the street and say Resident Evil, and if they knew what it was, I wonder would they know the game or the movies? And I think maybe Capcom wants to draw those things together. Be like, hey, no, if you come into Resident Evil 9, you'll actually know the storyline. Or whatever, like the beginnings of the storyline, not the full storyline, because
certainly
it takes
not.
a while.
We need that movie where Chris punches the boulder.
Someone shoots you see that Wesker guy? Someone shoots a rocket into his eyes. Like that is that. But yeah, I'm more interested in the CG movies, but now that I say that, I realize there may be too many Resident Evil movies coming out, and that makes me tired. Like, I don't want... If I start thinking about how much Resident Evil media is coming out, because there's the Netflix show, the CG movies...
Oh, I forgot about the Netflix show. Oh, my God.
Yeah, I don't want to watch all this stuff. I'm just going to do nothing. I'm going to play the game. That's it.
There you go. I'm skipping all of it. It's too much. I'm going home. All right. I think we covered our interest in the Resident Evil movie, at least of 4 pictures. But I'm with you, Imran. Like, I feel like Capcom loves to oversaturate the market with things they think are going to do well. I mean, look at Street Fighter in the 90s. Even as a hardcore fighting game fan who is no good at them, I was just eventually I kind of threw my hands up. I was like, this is enough. I've had enough. I'm done. I'm full. And I feel like as somebody who is a super casual Resident Evil fan, I probably probably won't check out any of this stuff, honestly. It's probably not going to happen.
What I want them to do is every time they make a movie of a video game, they have to make at least 2-episode run of a Saturday morning cartoon from the 90s, complete with like a theme song and all that. I want to see the Monster Hunter Saturday morning cartoon. Like, just do that. It just be like it's 4 guys and like one lady who doesn't actually monster hunt, but she's a secretary for the Monster Hunting Guild or whatever, because that's how Saturday morning cartoons work.
Yeah.
And like they fight the evil monster guild every episode, and like they have their wacky hijinks, and that's what I want to see. Because I'm not actually interested in watching the Monster Hunter movie. I'm going to because it's an intellectual curiosity, but not because it's probably going to be a good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Same.
that's
sure.
fair.
That's exactly how
I
I
can't
feel.
imagine Monster Hunter being good. And from what I've heard from our patrons, like everything that has come out of it so far looks awful, aside from the monster designs, if I'm remembering
I think they
correctly.
showed off images of the Palico, and I think didn't its release date get moved up to the 25th now? I
did it?
thought I
Maybe.
thought
I
I
don't
saw
know.
that, but I'm not
Of
sure.
this month, or when does that actually come out?
December 25th. I think it was supposed to come out
Christmas.
February. Yeah,
That's a great day to release a movie. I guess Wonder Woman's also releasing that day, so
That's on HBO
good job,
Max,
everybody.
so-
Good scheduling.
middle of a pandemic and Christmas. I like it.
Yeah, just a big fu to every movie reviewer there is. Just like, here's like 5 movies you have to review on Christmas.
I mean, they typically do that on Christmas anyway. Like, it always sort of shocked me how many movies came out on Christmas, and then I realized, there's always the people who don't really celebrate. So I guess it makes sense.
I mean,
I
the
suppose.
weird thing to me is I didn't know that this was like a tradition for lots of people. Like I was trash talking it with a friend. I was like, who goes to the movies on Christmas? Like, I just want to, even if I'm not celebrating, I just stay home and get drunk or something. And, I mean, I'm a dad. I've got 4 kids. We're definitely getting drunk on Christmas.
You're getting the kids
But-
drunk on Christmas. Got it. I'm taking fatherhood
Whoa,
tips.
whoa, that escalated quickly. Listen,
Well, you
it's
said
no
we're
fun if the
getting
kids
drunk
are
on
also
Christmas.
drunk. Listen, you gotta. Only one group is allowed to be inebriated on Christmas, and it's either the children or the parents, but never both.
I think it's like it's a thing of like it's a tradition for people who have like their family come in on Christmas. Like, I don't know what to do with you. Go to the movies, and like that's I guess the
fair.
Christmas tradition.
Like, my family doesn't come to visit me on Christmas. I don't go visit them because I'm lazy. And so, yeah, I never have that kind of like, hey, there's a lot of foreign people in my house that I need to get out. I imagine if like my brood descended upon me for Christmas, I'd probably be like, yeah, let's go anywhere that's not here. Let's just out.
Please get out of the house for like an hour so I can sleep.
Yeah, listen, guys, I
Yeah.
suddenly don't feel well, but I also have 12 tickets to some movie you like. So
I think,
me and my PlayStation 5 are going to be recovering together. And you guys, you go watch Wonder Woman.
I think Dan and Twistle said it best. GVG Christmas Day Drinkathon live stream confirmed.
Yeah, my family was always very like. It was our Christmas dinner was really lunch, and then we digest, hang out, open presents, then have leftovers for dinner, hang out even more. Probably wouldn't even get home till 8:00, so I couldn't imagine squeezing in a movie in there. I just remember as a kid being like, I got this stack of games I really want to play. I want to
Same.
go home.
I
Thank
never
God for
understood that.
thank God for the
tradition.
uh, mobile one.
You know what, though? If
handheld
you don't
ones.
celebrate the holiday or you just got a bunch of strangers you need to get the hell out of your house, I'm all for it. I'm not judging
Yeah.
people that do it. I've just never understood it.
Same.
That being said, speaking of getting games for Christmas or for your holiday celebration, whatever you celebrate, multiple Asian retailers have listed the English localization release date of Persona 5 Scramble as being in February 2021. This comes from Destructoid. I mean,
I think Gamatsu picked it up
This tracks
first,
for me.
but or Persona Central grabbed it first, and then Destructoid report.
Gotcha.
Got it back from them. But yeah, it's the Persona fan site, Persona Central. Eastern retailers, including Indonesia's PS Enterprise and Singapore's Kishan and Toy or Game, are among a handful of outlets who have posted the unconfirmed date, giving Persona fans even more hope. Because I want this game. I've been wanting this game
Yeah.
since it came out last year, and I got the Japanese version thinking, oh, cool, I'll be able to stream this and really like dive in, and now all of a sudden be like, nope, don't stream it. Like,
That release timing tracks to me. That seems like a pretty likely time period.
It's
for
weird
Persona
that it
5
took a
Scramble to
year,
drop in the
but
West.
please
This is
just make it
apples,
happen.
though.
I imagine the dub takes some localization takes some time. I also assume that Atlas Sega was probably real busy with Yakuza because that game had a hard date. It had to come out on the Xbox launch. So I imagine that was like the main priority. And then the other thing was like, also Hyrule Warriors is coming out at this date. That game's not going to move. Nintendo's not going to
Exactly.
move that game away from that date. So February it is. That said, yeah, it probably should have come out in the summer or something because like it did take a weirdly long time.
Yeah, I agree. I have to wonder. I mean, Sega Atlas don't seem like they're capable of putting out tons of games these days. I I mean, and they're not doing so hot. They're also working on what, PSO2 New Genesis, which launches around the same time as this supposed localization release date, right?
Does it?
Isn't that February 2021 for PSO2 New Genesis?
I don't pay attention to
I
PSO2
think
dates
it
anymore.
is.
I assume they're all lies.
I know. Imran, you and I have to, the funny thing is, I was chasing that story for a very, very long time. Like, what the fuck happened to Phantasy Star Online 2?
They promised me that story, but then, like, I think, one, I lost my job. So that was one big obstacle. Two, I forget who, Dan Shu, I think, got it for Polygon. And then he ended up writing like a 5. It was a really good story that he went over the entire thing and talked to all the producers, which I would not have been able to do. I wanted to do like one article, but still, the person who did promise me the story ended up leaving Sega before that story was written. So that was probably also part of the problem. But yeah, I always wanted to just like know what happened in 2013 that led to the announcement of PSO2 and the subsequent like 7-year delay.
Yeah. Like I sent probably 50 to 60 emails in those years trying to find out what was going on. And eventually, like when PSO2 finally launched, I was put in contact with someone and they're like, yeah, we know you've been chasing this. Ask them anything you want. And so the first question was just, what happened over the last 7 years? And they just didn't answer. So, maybe someday I'll get to put together something on that. But the person I talked to definitely didn't have the interest in explaining to me how it took that long. But I'm happy it's out now. I was really hyped when it got announced. Like I stood up in my chair. I was almost like the guy that air guitared me at Bethesda a few years ago.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, I was real happy it got announced, but then like I played an hour of it. I was like, cool, PSO2, yay, and then like never played it again. So like maybe not. I'm sure it's a very good game. I don't know that for me, I was necessarily like anticipating it for 7 years.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. For me, in my case, I played it over those 7 years, just the Japanese version. I didn't play it, consistently for 7 years, but I've sunk a few thousand hours into PSO2. And so when it came out in America, I was like, starting back at level 1, huh?
Which I think is the point of New Genesis. That's the like, hey, we know this game is old now. What if we made it look like newer and like a relaunch for America? But yeah.
Yeah, it's like a whole new game, but also just an expansion, and then they're also porting its graphics engine to the old game. Like, the messaging is super confusing. So Sega, if you're listening, sometime in the next 7 years, let us know what you're doing with this. I would appreciate that.
Actually, back on Persona 5 Scramble, are they going to make like? Are they just releasing that for PS4, or do you think they'll release a PS5 disc as well?
It's PS4 and Switch, right?
Yeah, but I don't know.
Well, yeah, but it's also a PlayStation game. And frankly, I probably want to play it over there, seeing how Musou games handle on the Switch. I'd probably take that extra horsepower.
Oh no, I'm definitely going to pick up Scramble on the PS4 just because I can put it right next to PS.
I guess like
that's definitely the kind of game that you would.
It's backwards compatible, so it's probably not a huge thing if they never put out like a PS5 version or whatever. But yeah, if they did put out that one, I'd probably get that.
I mean,
I'm
used to Musou games at this point though, so when I played of it on Switch, seemed fine, especially because they definitely aren't going for as big of groups, at least early on, that other Musou games have. It's definitely much more contained in that way, which I think kind of works to its benefit. It really doesn't feel like a Musou game to me. It feels like it's just an action RPG version of Persona 5, which is great, honestly. I'm so excited for it.
For me though, like a performant Musou game is a singular joy. Like I
agree. I hear you.
Like when a Musou game performs well, I'm like, damn, these are really good. And then I remember like the rest of them run at like 18 FPS. So
I almost exclusively played Fire Emblem Heroes on the frame rate mode. Like I didn't mind the knock in visual fidelity. It's Musou games are one of, like, I'm not one of those people who thinks every genre, every game needs to be 60 FPS. It's nice if they are, but I don't think it's necessary. But there are certain genres in which it's a lot more necessary, and I think Musou games fall into that group.
That's what confuses me, because like Hyrule Warriors on Switch ran really well. Like it wasn't a rock solid 60, but like among Musou Switch games, it was quite good. but nothing else, no other Musu games on Switch run quite as well as that, including Hyrule Warriors 2.
Yeah. We should have more on Hyrule Warriors 2 tomorrow, hopefully.
Yeah, I'll have some.
But what I played at the demo
time.
was definitely not the best experience. I went in hoping for like a Hyrule Warriors 1 level of quality and was blown away.
It did not feel slideshowy to me until I tried out local multiplayer, local co-op, and before that, maybe it's just because I have such a hard time telling with frame rates and whatnot, but I wasn't getting massive slowdown for anything, so it didn't bother me at all, or I didn't mind it. But I was also that kid where I encountered slowdown on NES games or Sega games or whatever. I'm like, oh sweet, there's so much action, the game can't even handle it. This is awesome. I was like, that's a feature to me. It's like, oh sweet, there's just that crazy stuff going on. Not so much anymore, but that's what I thought of it as a kid.
It's definitely not the case where it's not bad enough that I don't want to play the game, but I am certainly sensitive to frame drops and such, and it definitely came off as quite stuttery to me and problematic performance-wise. But it also looks great, and that it's the Switch. You can't have both, and I certainly think they have done a much more than good enough job for me to want to play it. It's not as though it's anywhere close to unplayable. Like this, what I saw in this has bothered me a lot less than something like Link's Awakening, right? Because that game doesn't seem like it should be having performance issues.
Sure.
Given the visual style and given it's essentially a top-down 2D Zelda, even though the assets are in 3D. A game like Age of Calamity, it seemed I can see why the Switch would struggle with that. So it's a little less frustrating for me in that sense.
All right,
really quick.
Let me go ahead.
I just wanted to call out something
Yeah,
Dennis J
please,
said in the chat. Dennis J in the chat says, "Isn't it crazy that Age of Calamity got both announced and released before Strikers?" Which adds a bit of interesting context.
Yeah, I guess that is true.
Timing. Yeah.
Oh God.
Fair.
Yeah.
So let me reel us back in real quick, Imran, to answer your question that we labored the point on. I don't think we're gonna see a PS5 disc for Persona 5. I'm sorry, Persona 5 Scramble. I wanted to say Strikers after Ash's answer.
Scramble the Phantom Strikers.
I don't think we're going to see a PS5 executable or a retail package for it. I would love for there to be. I think that it would benefit from it greatly. I think any Musou game could benefit from increased horsepower, but I don't think we'll see one. But I would absolutely jump on board if it did come out.
Yeah.
Skipping
Easy
down,
excuse to spend $10 more or charge $10 more.
Yeah. Side note, the PS4 to PS5 like physical upgrade scenario, I've tried to do it a couple times. I can't get it to work.
It's garbage. It is so terrible. Like, even digital is also really bad. Like, it is the thing that I don't think Sony thought about at all until like 4 weeks before the PS5 came out. It's like, oh yeah, I guess we got to do this, huh? Like, Borderlands, I think, is the most complicated situation I've ever seen for upgrading a game to the next generation, including just buying a new version of a game. Like,
wow.
It is ridiculous. In Mortal Kombat doesn't bring your save file over. Borderlands requires you to upload your character from the PS4 version to and then download it onto the PS5.
Oh my God.
It's all just a mess. And it makes you appreciate that Microsoft was like, no, yeah, we're just gonna take care of it for you. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. I think there are things each company did better than others. And definitely the cross-gen upgrade thing is something Sony does not yet have nailed. Like I got sent out of nowhere like a PS4 physical copy of Watch Dogs Legion after I'd already completed the game on Xbox. And so I was like, oh, well, this is a great opportunity to test out upgrading. I don't know how to do it. I read the article. I looked for the thing that said should be there. It's not there. They're like, oh, just go into the game hub and there will be the option. I'm like, yeah, Chief, it's not there. It's not. I can reinstall the game as many times as you want. It won't show up, but that's fine. I've already played Watch Dogs. It's okay. We're striking content as we go, folks. We're 57 minutes in. One more story. So I'm gonna skip over our political Animal Crossing thing. That sucks. That's my hot take on it.
Also, it's dumb. You can't stop people
Agreed.
from doing that.
Yeah.
Good luck.
You're not going to stop it, but the big story here, the one Ash wants to talk about, I guarantee. Organizers for a major Smash Open competitive event, the Big House, have received a cease and desist order from Nintendo over their usage of a mod called Slippy that allows Smash Bros. Melee to be played online. The caveat here is that you have to pirate the game to use the mod. So I can see I can see both sides on this. Like, I mean, on one hand, yeah, piracy, not great. Don't do that if you can avoid it. Don't do it. I mean, games aren't like a required thing for life. Like, you don't have to have games. So, maybe don't pirate them. But I think there's also kind of a gray area. Like, if you have a Melee disc and you know how to rip it yourself, like, I don't consider that piracy personally. Like, also, you're making a copy of a game you own and you're not distributing it, right? Those are all like very like it is definitely a slippery slope kind of situation. It's like, hey, rip your own disc, don't share it with someone. Everyone's just going to say they did that, right?
Yeah, this isn't like Smash Ultimate with like, oh, we changed heroes down B. This is like, you can't buy Melee anymore. So it's not like they're really losing a whole lot by like, if somebody pirated the game, they're not losing a sale because there is no option to buy a copy of Melee.
Right.
From Nintendo.
Exactly. Like, that's where I kind of start to think this is obtuse on Nintendo's part. You can't, the game is no longer commercially available. And it's 19 years old. Like, this is an old game that Nintendo is no longer selling. Like, if it was on the Switch eShop for $10 and people were still doing this, then I'd be like, okay, dude, go to the eShop and give them their $10 and play it online with your friends in your tournament. But this is a situation where Nintendo's removed the game from sale. It can't be picked up anywhere, and they're just using a mod that lets you play it online. I'm not sure that I feel too bad for Nintendo here.
I think what this is. Go ahead, Imran.
It's a weird situation because, like, or not weird, I should say. I understand both sides, like you were saying, Steve. Yes, you can't buy this game anywhere. This is a really dumb thing to get haughty about. But on the other hand, yeah, it's a slippery slope. It is, if you start saying, hey, yeah, you can, for your major tournaments in a scene that we're actually involved in these days, if you start using emulated versions, then that really opens the door to, like, whatever you want. Like, what if they start playing Project M at these same tournaments and start streaming that stuff too? Then Nintendo has to be like, hey, we're out of this thing now because we can't support this emulated version because, like, you can start doing this with Ultimate too, and we've already given our good graces to one of these.
Isn't there something out there?
It's a really slippery slope.
Yeah, isn't there something out there where they have to do those copyright lawsuits in order to, like, maintain the copyright?
That's what I was going to say.
No.
I think this is about posturing more than anything. This is about
the copyright lawsuit. Like, that's apocryphal. That's not really a thing. Okay. But like, it's not that they have to, but it does present a harder legal argument the next time when they do want to change something. Someone can say, "Hey, but you said yes to this."
Yeah, exactly. It's a really slippery slope here. It's like, go ahead, Steve.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I agree. I think it's a very slippery slope, and this is kind of about posturing and kind of putting their foot down across the board, right? And saying, it is short in the short term. It comes off as a little tone deaf because this is a 19-year-old game that they're not profiting from, and Melee is in this really weirdly specific, unique position where it's a game that the community, at least a small, very vocal sect of the community, still latches onto and plays to death 19 years later. And that's not really anything there's no comparison for that anywhere else. Even Street Fighter, people still play Street Fighter 2, but not religiously the way people still play Melee. And so it's a unique situation, but at the same time, while I get why people are upset, why Melee fans are upset, I think they also should have expected this. I think they, at the same time,
we all know how Nintendo plays at this point.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, this is, it would be shocking to me if they did not know that this is how Nintendo was going to react, and they were kind of like, looking for that, like sniffing around for that fight, because you would have to be real ignorant of the past 20 years of Nintendo to go, oh no, they'll be fine with this. This is not going to be a big deal.
Like, I get it. You only did this because of the pandemic, and you can't get people next to each other. You have to play online some way, but it's just the way it is. You have to delay it or you mess it up. And as all of you have said, you can see both sides, but the slippery slope that we've mentioned with Nintendo, they have to do this.
Right. I agree with Imran on this. This is, you had to know this was coming if you followed Nintendo for the last 20 years. They're notoriously litigious against, fan games. People using any of their IP in a way they don't approve. Nintendo is going to bring the hammer down. They're, the phrase Nintendo ninjas exists for good reason. The one thing I want to say, though, is the takeaway shouldn't be that you should get upset with Nintendo for doing what they've always done. You should get upset with Nintendo for not preserving these games, not making them available. That's really what you should be upset about. Don't be upset that they're telling you not to pirate a game, not to play it with mods. Be upset that they're not letting you buy this game. If you really want to play Melee,
irony being, the ultimate irony being, if they did re-release, let's say they did Melee HD or something, the community still would prefer to use whatever home-brewed versions of the game they have, because
but they would have less of a foot to stand on at that point, though. That's the whole
honestly
thing.
It's weird because Mario 3D All-Stars is a game that I'm personally extremely disappointed by. If they just did it with Smash Brothers, people would love it. If they went hey, here's the old thing exactly as it was. Here's a GameCube controller support. Here's some HD graphics. There you go.
Here's my problem, right? Is that while I do actually, I've made it pretty clear before that I'm not the Melee sect of the community often drives me crazy because I'm a huge Smash guy, but the Melee community gets really obnoxious sometimes to me. However, that said, I actually sympathize with them in this case, but my problem is that many of these same fans who are outraged by this are the same people who are outraged when Nintendo, for example, doesn't sink thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars into supporting Melee tournaments. There is no financial incentive for Nintendo to support anything other than Smash Ultimate in terms of the broader sect of the community. 99% of players are playing the newest game with 85 million characters in it. So I get why I think Melee fans should continue to play their game and keep fighting for it, but to get angry at Nintendo for not actively supporting it is to me like getting angry at Capcom for not continuing to actively financially support Street Fighter 4 after Street Fighter 5 came out,
Well, a good example is when Street Fighter Rainbow used to be a thing. Capcom was
forgot about that. Yeah.
You wouldn't see that played on the main stage of Evo. And if it was, Capcom would be like, haha, look at this funny thing. But they wouldn't say okay, play this seriously. I don't think Nintendo's necessarily in the wrong here, but Nintendo's hand is too heavy for these sort of things. And that is ultimately and also the archiving thing, as Steve said, that's where they're erring, is they are not understanding the nuance that they could get place themselves in these situations. They're either no, don't do it, or no, do it. And either way, it's no. But
GameCube could support on Switch, having a virtual console for GameCube games. I think there's enough of an interest there, especially for the big ones.
Yeah.
And I know Fire Emblem fans would go nuts if they could actually get Path of Radiance for a decent amount of money and not spend $100.
Nintendo releases it, but they only release until March 31st. There you go.
There you go.
I love it.
We split the baby. They're happy. We're happy.
It's done. Perfect.
Rob Arman X says something along those lines where they said Melee HD is only available from January 1st to January 2nd.
And it would still sell 4 million copies.
Oh, yeah.
Right, exactly. But I guess that's the thing is we also can't say with any certainty that Nintendo doesn't eventually have plans to re-release Melee in some fashion. And if they do, fair. Then there's your excuse right there, But it does suck for good faith Melee fans. I can see this from both sides for sure.
Yeah, bottom line, it would be nice if these games were available, but I think any corporation would probably, or at least most corporations would probably do what Nintendo's doing here.
I think so.
I think that puts a nice little button on both that story and tonight's episode. So we've covered all the major headlines from today's news. Before I fuck up this sign off, Imran, where can we find you, man?
You can find me on Twitter at Imran, IMRANZOMG, or you can find me on Kinda Funny on usually Tuesdays and Wednesdays for Gamecast. You can find our latest episode on YouTube right now on Kinda Funny Games, where we talk about next-gen systems and we nitpick the hell out of them. You can also find my bylines at various websites. I did a Yakuza piece on Inverse. I did some opinion pieces recently for IGN. I'm on Vice and other sites like that. So just look up my name. You'll either find me or the Prime Minister. 6 of 1, pick 'em. You're good.
That screwed with me so bad when we became mutuals on Twitter, because I name searched you on Twitter and I was like, wait, this is oddly like way more political than I expected. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, there's another famous Imran Khan. So,
you and thousands of people who DM me every day.
I love that.
Nice. So one last bit of news, or one last order of business before we sign off, is that we have to do our thanks to all our patrons. So obviously, if you support us at any level, we're very appreciative of you. Again, and if you don't support us yet, you can join us over at patreon.com/gvgaming, where you can pick a tier, support us, any tier. We'll be really happy. Mm-hmm. But for those of you at the producer tiers and above, we have a very special thank you. Again, without your support, this show wouldn't be possible. So for our producers, thank you so much. Hopefully your names are on the screen right now as I'm saying this. And for our executive producers, you, of course, get a special thank you from me personally for this episode. Our executive producers are Rob, Arman X, Dan and Twistle, Z Patty, Adam O'Sullivan, Floating Mew, Christopher, The D-Pad, Vesmio, OnStar, Dukemon, Diogo, Kieran Phillips, Benny Yao, my mom. Hi, Mom. Geller, Shiny Turkey, Titus Malvolio, Jake Pelka, Michael Phone, Mitchell Herring, Popdog23100, Jay Acosta, Game Explain, and I'm just going to say the first name. Welcome aboard, by the way, our first new one, Charles. And remember, like I said, you can join us over at patreon.com/gvgaming, or you can just watch this on YouTube later on. But you can join our live audience for as little as $5 a month. Thanks to everyone for watching. Hope you had a good time hanging out with us. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to Good Vibes Gaming for more good times like these. Until next time, good night and good vibes. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.